This is the part of the video where I'm always encouraging you guys to keep checking out the links down in the description, the Black Lives Matter movement link and the AAPI links down that are listed. But I also want to ask for your help this time around. All of the things that are happening in Palestine right now have taken kind of the forefront of the news and what's being spread around social media. I am looking for a catch-all kind of link. I've been trying to spread any information I can on Twitter and Tumblr, like trying to reblog any links, anything like that. But if you have any link that's similar to the other two links that are in the description that has everything, information, you know, GoFundMe's, just anything like that all together in one, if anybody could send me that link if you have it, I would really appreciate it. I want to have it in the description as well as those other two links because it is something incredibly important and there is information that we need to know in any way that we can help. So if you guys have like a catch-all, like card kind of link, please let me know. Send it to me on any social media, put it in the comments, I don't care. As long as I can get a hold of that link so that it can start being in the description, I would really appreciate it. Hello Friendzies, welcome back to my channel. So like a year or so ago, was it a year? It might have been a little more, a little less. A year or so ago, I made a video talking about why Clare Siobhan is my absolute storytelling icon. Especially in the sense of Sims, but also just as a storyteller in general. And I kind of went on a weird tangent in the middle there. I watched the video back the other day because I wanted to make this video. And I don't know, I went off on a weird tangent, but today I want to actually talk about some of the storytelling she does in her videos, because that was the point of that video, was for me to talk about the storytelling, not just tell you that the Rags to Riches series with Willow and Yona was my favorite and the Villarreal family is my favorite. I want to talk about why. And the types of stories she tells. And since that video has come out, there's been a lot more videos that have come out, a lot more with the characters that she was working with at the time, and a lot more with newer characters that she's playing with, and not from her original save file. And she's branched out and told like different stories and just more of other stories since that. And so I really want to talk about that in the aspect of storytelling, because the other day I reread one of my favorite books of all time just because I had the brain itch to read it. And I love it. It's like my comfort book. So it was really, I don't know, now I'm like kind of in a storytelling kick. So I want to talk about the actual storytelling that Clare Siobhan does and not just ramble about how I love Rags to Riches. All right, so first and foremost, I said in the other video about how she tries to keep a lot of her stories really realistic, especially when she started in the beginning, because the way Clare Siobhan started her Sims videos is she made herself and her fiance and kind of did their life. She made like their absolute dream house for the time. It was literally, the series was called Sims 4 Dream House, and it was building up to like realistically saving up the money to get that job, you know, having children and things like that. So a lot of her stories were very realistic, and a lot of her stories in the beginning focused on specific types of representation because that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to be as inclusive as possible. She has branched out since then. She has delved into like some supernatural elements of the game and like video game aspects of the game. Like there were aliens involved and we've had vampires and things like that. But she tried to keep things really realistic in the beginning. And if you are a Clare Siobhan fan watching this, first of all, hi, hello, welcome to my channel. Second of all, I know he got better, and I know it was resolved, and I know the relationship was fixed, but I have this opinion that I want to point out very quickly, and I stand by it, and it's an opinion I wanted to say in the first, like, video like this, but I 100% stand by this opinion. Hunter Fisher is a bitch. He's built like a bitch. Like, again, I know that relationship got solved and everything, and, you know, him and Rue ended up being perfectly fine, you know, Rue forgave him and all that stuff, but Hunter Fisher is built like a bitch, has a trans sibling, and just can't handle and fathom that, so he fucking runs away to Selvadorada. Like, built like a bitch. I'm sorry, that is my opinion. I don't like Hunter. I do not like Hunter, I'm sorry. I'm glad him and Salome got together. Salome, is that how you pronounce it? And I forgot what their twins' names were, but seeing them in university was like great, fantastic. But Hunter's built like a bitch. And that's what I'm saying. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about specifically, in this aspect of storytelling, the Villarreal family, because that is, like I said in the last video I made like this, that is my favorite family. As I said in that video as well, my like playthrough I have on my Sims game where it's my Sim self. I'm married to Max. We have children. We're having grandchildren. Max died, unfortunately. God rest his soul. He died, but we have grandchildren now, and it's like our family is like, this is my version of the Clare Siobhan family, essentially. But I want to talk about the Villarreal family specifically, because the way they start is not necessarily like a fantastical, thought out, planned story. The way the Villarreal family starts is more of the realistic, these things happen in real life kind of storytelling that Clare has always tried to do, especially in the beginning. So Emma and Max were like a teen pregnancy storyline. Emma was one of Clare's children. Emma and Max were like a teen pregnancy storyline. Max was very like verbally and I believe, no, just verbally. Max was very like verbally abusive in the beginning. They had a daughter named Lilith, and a lot of the Villarreal family, Lilith downward, have had very religious names or like religiously themed names, which wasn't anything in particular at the time. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, like Max is a bad boy, so that would be kind of cool, like little demon, like, you know what I mean? Like she kind of had like, thought it was very cool, kind of like aesthetically it was like, it felt right to do for her. But as it's gone down the line, it's been very interesting to see where the stories have gone with those names. So Max was very like verbally abusive, so Emma left, you know, they weren't together anymore, and she took Lilith. Lilith was sent to Max's, or like went to Max's house at some point to have, you know, like time with her dad, because Emma wanted Lilith to have time with her dad. And Max had another child named Abel. Interesting. And then at some point there was a fire and it killed Abel's mother, and Lilith was able to rescue Max and Abel, but because of that, Abel suffered from PTSD. And Abel suffered through PTSD his entire life. He had, you know, just like with any other mental illness, he had patches where he was doing really good, but there were patches where things went really bad. And the thing about the Villarreal family, if you haven't watched Clare Siobhan's videos, the Villarreal family was specifically part of a series that she did called Broken Dream. And throughout the entirety, from the minute Max got involved, basically, all the way down to, where did we leave off with Cain? All the way down, the Villarreal family has just not had any kind of luck or stability at all. Crazy things have happened here and there, you know, with everybody else's part of the family and all the other branches of the family tree. Things have happened here and there, but the Villarreals have, like, suffered the most. And I think that's fascinating. And she's used that. A lot of it wasn't intentional, but she's used that in later points of storytelling. A lot of Lilith's, like childhood and being a teen was a lot of, like, no luck in love kind of stuff. Same thing with Abel, just no luck in love. There was just a lot of, like, crossed wires and mixed signals and things like that. Lilith doesn't end up getting married until, like, much later in life to a much older gentleman. Abel has a daughter with somebody who has no interest in being a mother whatsoever, so then Abel and his daughter kind of are abandoned by that mother. Sammy B grows up and has absolutely no luck in life. Sammy B is Lilith's son. No luck in love at all. Very little luck in life overall. He deals with a lot, and when Lilith does what she does when she passes, it's like absolutely earth-shattering for this poor boy. Phoenix, because of the way her mother is and just the way her mother acted when she reconnects with her mother, goes like off the rails, and her relationship with Abel is just like completely destroyed, which is so heartbreaking because Abel raises her and cares about her so much. Abel dies of a, like, in the game it was like a heart attack. It was due to the emotions, but it was because of his PTSD. He was having, just for whatever reason, whatever triggered him, it was like an especially bad episode, and he dies because of his PTSD, which is horrible. And he's with his new girlfriend. That's kind of like maybe the perfect girl for him other than Erica, and she's pregnant, because of course she is. Sammy B goes on to become a witch and live with Abel's girlfriend at the time that he died and help her raise both of Abel's children. But there's some spooky shit going on with that. And then same thing with Phoenix. Phoenix goes on her life. Phoenix dies of being stressed. And I don't remember exactly what it is. I know in the game it was like the tense moodlet, and it was because Clare Siobhan was doing the Get Famous like expansion pack. And it was like a celebrity quirk thing, the emotion bomb quirk. If you play The Sims, you know what I'm talking about. So Phoenix died from being tense. She was brought back to life, but that's spooky shit that gets tangled in there. Sammy B is involved in the spooky shit. Seth and Eve, who are two more of Abel's children, are into some spooky shit. It's a whole incredible thing. And where Sammy B, Seth, and Eve kind of come in the most is Sammy B was involved in her Stranger Stories story, where Strangerville came out, the like game pack. The Strangerville game pack came out, and it was Sammy B, Cody, and Sebastian. Samuel Blaze, sorry, that's Sammy's full name. Samuel Blaze, Sebastian, and Cody were all involved in that. And then I believe Sammy B went off to, I believe, school or to live with Holly. I'm not entirely sure of that exact timeline. And Cody and Sebastian dealt with zombies, which was her doing more of a supernatural. It was Clare Siobhan branching out into more of like a video game-y aspect of The Sims and not just like trying to make things realistic. So there was zombies. So that kind of brings fantastical things in. And then shortly after, around the same time, there was a game pack created by, you know, like a mod or a CC creator that was witches and warlock stuff, and that is, can you believe that was better than make more than magic or whatever what is it called? What is the game pack called? Or the expansion pack, whatever we call it. What was it even called? Spellcasters? I don't know. But the like fan-made game pack was better. And Sammy B is involved with that. He becomes a witch, and he trains with Holly, who was Abel's girlfriend at the time that he died. He trains with Holly, and Holly was pregnant with Abel's baby. And she has Seth, and she also has Eve, and they are little witch twins. And around that time, or it was later, that she like officially said it, but it would still make sense in the timeline. Clare Siobhan has said that the Villarreal family is like, whether or not they have direct access to it or it's like very dormant within them and they need to do certain things to unlock it, Villarreal blood has magic embedded in them. There is a bloodline of magic in the Villarreal family. So not the Calriacan family, the Villarreal specifically. So when Max got involved and had Lilith with Emma, magic was embedded in them. And that creates, when she says that, that creates a whole history of lore. And realistically, it was more of a kind of afterthought added to then go forward with other stories and to kind of make it make more sense. Like when you get into Raven's storyline, Raven and then the Vampires and Witches crossover, it makes more sense then, absolutely. And it's, on one hand, it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. Like, she threw it in afterwards to make other things work. But the way Clare Siobhan has always played her game, that statement, even though it was made generations later, still makes sense. Because especially if you look at the Villarreals, just the things that happen to them and the way certain things happen, you can see that bit of magic that was always in them at work in some way, shape, or form. All the way down the line to Raven and Sujung having... Did they have a baby? I don't remember if they had a baby. I know Nita and Nanami had a baby. Had 3 babies. Oh my god. They had 3 babies. But I don't remember if Raven had officially had a baby at the time. Raven also had a clone at one point. Raven tried to bring her mother back to life. Her mother was Phoenix. Oh my god, it was a whole thing and I loved it. I loved it so much. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Cody, because Cody is like a whole different thing. And this again was more of like an afterthought that was then lore that was built to... It was lore that was built later to like work with what was happening at the time, but actually goes back without even intending to the very beginning. Because when Cody was little, when he was a toddler, Ryder and Jake brought Cody. Who brought Sammy B? Did Abel bring Sammy B? I think he might have. Sammy B and Cody had a play date. And on the play date, Cody bit Sammy. That is an interaction you can do in The Sims 4. Toddlers can bite each other, they can babble, they can hug each other. It's like, you know, toddler things. Cody bit Sammy autonomously because for whatever reason they weren't getting along, and that kind of makes sense because they never really got along too much later in life. But also later in life, Cody became a vampire to help this mysterious woman named Arya to fight off Eve, who I don't know. I'd have to look at the family tree. I do have the family tree on my phone. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can deduce how many times removed Eve and Cody are from each other. They seem to be second or third cousins, Cody and Eve. So Cody gets approached by this like strange vampire lady and is asked for help defeating Eve, who is like his second or third cousin, which I don't think Arya knew that at the time. I don't think Arya knew that till later. But, you know, scary witch lady. And Cody, the thing is, what I think Arya knew is that Eve was a scary witch lady and Cody was the hero of Strangerville twice over. So I think that's where it came in. But then the fact that they are like second cousins is like, makes it even worse. So Cody is turned into a vampire to help defeat Eve, and it's a whole thing. And then him and Arya get together and have a child, whatever. And, I mean, obviously it's kind of hard to do it in The Sims because there's not, like, I don't know, it's not really built in for that, and I kind of like that it's not built in. But realistically, if you look at, like, kind of the timelines of when things happen, Cody saved Strangerville, like, let's say from like this, let's say the year 2021, Cody saved Strangerville in maybe the 90s, or like 2000, 2001 at the latest, but early like 90s, like 1990s, around then, I would say, like if we're kind of trying to be realistic about the timeline. So then later on in her gameplay, when you have Zoe Rose, who's trying to like a very normal life, is like studying to be a lawyer and like starting to work at a law firm, like a nonprofit law firm, and just help her cousin who has a friend. I personally didn't ship Alice and Carson. I was really into Alice and Freya, but Zoe Rose is trying to help her cousin and her friend like clear his name because he was in a gang and he decided to leave the gang and was framed for a crime he didn't commit. So Zoe Rose goes to Cody because it was the lab in Strangerville and people were trying to steal paperwork from the lab in Strangerville because holy shit, why wouldn't you want to know about Strangerville? It's like Area 51, especially with redacted lab, like hello. So she goes and she, you know, she does some digging, she asks around and everything, and she finds out that, was his name Calorie Aiken? I don't remember if Cody's last name was Calorie Aiken. No, Cody Jet. Cody was a Jet. She finds Cody Jet in like some files somewhere about like, she's like, oh, okay, he might be able to answer our questions. He was there. And she's like, oh wait, like that guy's related to me, like in some weird distant way because Cody and Zoe Rose are like second or third cousins as well, just on the other end of the family line. She goes to Cody and she sees him, and this is like the early 90s and this is like 2021. Cody was in like his early 20s when he was the hero of Strangerville. So for Zoe Rose to see him and for him to still look like he's in his 20s, she's like, okay, so whatever. Like, she feels like it's weird. She asks questions, whatever. She gets the information. Cody tells her whatever information he can. And then they're leaving. It's Zoe Rose and, oh, I forgot his name, but whoever she was working with that she ended up having a relationship with. He kind of asks her. He was like, oh, like, that's your uncle or something? And Zoe Rose is like, yeah, he's should be the same age as my dad's. And her dads at this point are like elder, like life bar is full elders. So it's very strange. And the thing is, Zoe Rose never knows because Zoe Rose's kind of area of playthrough was Clare Siobhan going more back into like more realistic storytelling because she did a lot of her supernatural stuff and then kind of went back to that. So like it's funny that Cody is a vampire that looks so young, and if you weren't part of kind of the time period and the generation of supernatural happenings, you obviously don't know because certain people don't talk about it. Like, obviously, Raven and Nita will talk about it because that's their life. Cody will talk about it with Sebastian and Sammy B because that is their life. That's what they did together. But everybody else in the family doesn't even know about that. And that's crazy. It's such an interesting way of like world building and lore because that's realistic to life. There is kind of a divide. There are people that do certain things and people that don't do certain things. And unless they have any reason to connect and talk about it, they're not going to talk about it. These people will talk about their shared experiences. These people will talk about their shared experiences. And it's very separate. Not in a mean way, but in just a natural way. Like, you don't really have too much in common. You're not going to... Cody's not going to tell Chase and Willow that he is a vampire and he fought with their children, or Willow's child. And hey, remember Phoenix? Yeah. You remember how you and Phoenix and Fran are all besties? Yeah, Raven, her daughter, is a fucking witch now, and so is your daughter, Willow. Haha, funny. We fought a crazy witch lady that almost killed all of us. But also, she's our cousin. Like, absolutely ridiculous. Oh, and back to the Villarreal. Sorry, I'm like flipping back and forth. Back to the Villarreals. Abel's children, after, you know, all of that nonsense, Phoenix was brought back from the dead because her aunt sacrificed herself, and her daughter later becomes a witch, but then his son Seth is a witch. Like, Seth has magic in him, and Seth practices magic for a long time. He's magically aged up and down so many times in the Witches series. And then he's just expected to kind of go out and live his life and be a normal college student, which he does. He does the best he can. But then there's the whole aspect of Seth being essentially very useless and Seth being an adorable dummy, just like Uncle Sammy. And it puts a strain on his relationship with Pam, who's just like a regular girl. She's just living her life, going to college. But it's because of he was magically aged up and down so many times, so mentally he's stuck at like 15, I think, 15, 16. And Pam's just trying to live her life. So then that's where the weird intersections come in, because shit like that happens all the time. And then Cain is their son, which again, that biblical name. Cain comes in, and Cain is basically set to follow in the footsteps of his grandfather, great-grandfather, whoever Max was to Cain, of becoming a criminal. And it's absolutely bananas how the lore and the familial storytelling works in her game, because whether she does it intentionally from the very beginning or she does it later on with the intent of things from the past making sense with that, it's just absolutely brilliant the way she does it, and I am so incredibly inspired by her and the way she tells storytelling. So, yup, Clare Siobhan is my storytelling icon, and that's where I'm going to cut it, because I think I did only want to talk about, like, Cody and the Villarreals, because that storytelling-wise was the most rich, in-depth part I could think of. Everybody else, like I said, is more, like, realistic things in life, like Alonzo being... I'm not sure if Alonzo was gender fluid or non-binary. Alonzo is one of the two. And it, you know, it's like the story of discovering that and living with that and coming out to people you feel comfortable coming out to. Zoe Rose was learning how to balance your life. Being like an overachiever, feeling like you always have to strive to the very top, is balancing your life. Alice was being an orphan and kind of having nothing, and certain choices you make when you have nothing. Like, do you go this route or do you go this route? Ty was realizing that he was gay, and having a family that was very traditional in a very specific way, and not knowing if he was going to be accepted or not. And Kenai was a very realistic take on not having money, like being poor and struggling and trying to decide what to do with that, and trying to be like a responsible adult when you're only like 17, 18. So more realistic storytelling, but the supernatural area right in the middle was like such a sweet spot. And I did say in the last video I made like this that I wasn't the biggest fan of vampires versus witches, but I still loved it. Like, it still was good. It just wasn't my favorite over, like, Stranger Stories or the original Witches series, so. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like if this is something that you enjoy when I talk about, like, things like this. And please, like I said, if you have a catch-all link for any resources, any information about Palestine, please leave it down in the description, or in the comments, or, like, send it to me on other social medias, just anything. I want to put a link like that in the description. I just don't know which one to put in, because I feel like there's a lot of links and everything, but I haven't found, like, a catch-all link. So, yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! You know what? Who's your least favorite Clare Siobhan character?